Hi, VencoreWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Monday, December 29th. Well, a bit chillier air mass has arrived in the Mid-Atlantic region as we begin the new work week. It'll turn even colder following the passage of a secondary cold front by tomorrow. And it looks like this week will generally be seasonably cold and relatively dry. There are a couple of weak low pressure areas that will try to push a little bit of light precipitation into the southern part of the Mid-Atlantic region over the next 24 to 48 hours or so. But for the most part, it'll be a seasonably cold and dry week. The next significant storm of interest looks like it'll hold off until the latter part of the weekend, perhaps into the early part of next week, and we will take a sneak preview into the prospects for that storm come Sunday or Monday of next week. Well, let's start off by looking at the latest surface map. Here's a cold frontal system that did indeed pass through the Mid-Atlantic region on Sunday. There's a secondary push of even colder air. Today we'll primarily see high temperatures this afternoon in the low to mid 40s up and down the I-95 corridor. Then that front passes through and it looks like we'll drop another step downward in temperatures by Tuesday. High temperatures tomorrow confined to the 30s and probably the 30s for highs on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday as well. Again, a couple of areas of weak low pressure will ride along this frontal boundary zone to the north and east over the next 24 to 48 hours or so. DC could see a touch of rain or snow anytime from tonight through tomorrow night from any one of these weak low pressure areas. Probably stays dry north and east of the Mason-Dixon line, and for the most part a seasonably cold week and relatively dry. Well, in terms of cloud cover for today, Monday, as we begin the new work week, this is from the Penn State eWall site, is a colorized version of the infrared satellite imagery loop. Notice here the back edge right here advancing fairly rapidly to the south and east. Indeed, there's quite a bit of cloud cover right now up and down the I-95 corridor, but there's a decent chance at some sunshine this afternoon as some of this back edge rolls to the east. So let's call it partly sunny for today, and for the most part it should be dry, precipitation free with high temperatures this afternoon reaching the low to mid 40s, and then a step downward in temperatures for tomorrow with highs confined to the 30s up and down the I-95 corridor. Well, let's talk about the upper atmosphere right now. We're looking at the 500 millibar height anomalies for the current time right now, Monday morning. And frankly, there's some mixed signals going on. There's been quite a battle in the atmosphere as we transition from milder conditions during much of December to a more of a winter-like pattern right now. And indeed, right now, this morning, as we start the new work week, Arctic air has kind of spread out from coast to coast, and we'll get a step downward in temperatures by tomorrow here in the I-95 corridor. Much of the rest of the nation excuse me, is already below normal, experiencing some Arctic air. Here's the GFS Ensemble 12-hour forecast from last night's 0Z run for this morning. And again, I want to point out what's going on here in the upper part of the atmosphere. Kind of an interesting battle going on. One signal right here that indicates, generally indicates much colder weather for the eastern U.S. is strong high pressure ridging right now up and down the west coast of Canada and the western coast of the U.S., right in this region right here. This typically combines with lower pressure in the upper part of the atmosphere over eastern Canada to create a flow of air, as it's the case right now, right out of northern Canada. Cold weather spilling out from Canada into the northern U.S., and then it spreads to the south and east. And indeed, much of the nation right now is below normal. However, on the opposite side of the coin here, we have high pressure ridging right here along the southeast U.S. coast. And this has been kind of a thorn in the side of all those who favor cold and snowy weather this time of the year. This southeastern ridge has occasionally flared up and caused some warming to move up into the I-95 corridor. And this is kind of the battle zone going on here between strong ridging out along the west coast, which typically pushes Arctic air into the northern U.S. At the same time, there's still some residual high pressure ridging here in the southeast U.S., and that'll cause quite a battle over the next couple of weeks. It looks like it'll be quite an interesting couple of weeks, challenging to forecast, and the battle zone will help to create some strong low pressure areas. The first one we'll have to deal with looks like perhaps the latter part of this upcoming weekend into the early part of next week. Now let's jump way ahead. This is again using last night's zero-Z ensemble run from the GFS model, 500 millibar height anomaly chart for a week from now, next Monday morning, January 5th. By the way, these maps here are from tropicaltidbits.com. Much the same here. We have strong ridging up along the western part of Canada, a flow of air bringing very cold air from northern Canada into the northern U.S., likely spilling out into the I-95 corridor, perhaps even towards the west here. This is definitely a cold pattern, a cold look to the pattern here. But notice here, we still have this high pressure ridging sitting off the southeast U.S. coastline, and every once in a while that'll kind of pump up and push some milder air out ahead of it into the I-95 corridor. And this is, again, represents a battle zone situation here over the next week or two, and we'll continue to monitor this, but a very interesting time period. It favors colder weather here for the next couple of weeks thanks to this high pressure ridging across the western part of North America. Cold air will indeed push southward from northern Canada into the northern U.S., and cold air is dense air, so it usually winds out, usually spreads far to the south and east. So I expect for the most part this will be a cold looking pattern, but we'll have to periodically monitor what's going on here in the upper part of the atmosphere across the southeastern part of the U.S. Well, let's take a look at the surface map now for 1 week from now. Again, this week looks like it'll be relatively quiet with seasonable chill and relatively dry conditions, especially dry following the couple of weak low pressure areas over the next 48 hours or so that could throw a bit of precipitation into the southern part of the mid-Atlantic region. But this is now a week from now, and again we have probably a significant storm to deal with either during the latter part of the weekend or the early part of next week. This is the latest run from the GFS parallel version. This is the updated version of the GFS model, which will become operational in just a few weeks. 1 week from now, we talked about that cold air in the upper part of the atmosphere coming down from northern Canada into the U.S. Notice high pressure, strong high pressure, 1051 here in south central Canada, 1047 in southeastern Canada. This represents or is indicative of very cold Arctic air just to the north. Meanwhile, GFS parallel also shows kind of a damming situation here setting up early part of next week. When you see these isobars kink like this, that means cold air is spilling down south and east of the Appalachian Mountains. At the same time, a large area of moisture is gathering strength here in the south central part of the country. Again, this is a 7-day forecast. We're just in speculation mode here, but let's move ahead here and step through and see what the GFS parallel has. Now this is by next Monday evening, and the surface low pressure moves off the mid-Atlantic coastline. Very strong Arctic high pressure to the north in southeastern part of Canada, and snow here represented by the blues breaks out across the I-95 corridor from D.C. north and east. Pushing ahead, it looks like this has the potential for being a snowstorm here in the I-95 corridor. Again, this is way far ahead in the speculation mode, but it's really the next storm of interest, the next big storm of interest for folks in D.C., Philly, New York City, latter part of the weekend, early part of next week. So it looks like quite an interesting pattern setting up here for the next couple of weeks, which favors cold air in the I-95 corridor, but we'll have to keep an eye on that ridge in the upper part of the atmosphere across the southeast U.S. periodically. That'll push some warmer air up into the I-95 corridor, but potentially some interesting weather here latter part of the weekend, early part of next week. That's it for now. For VencoreWeather.com, I'm meteorologist Paul Dorian.